Yeah, so, there's an intelligent analysis that we could do, and then there's like a fan analysis of this. And just as someone that didn't really have a dog in the fight, I did think the Bills were going to win the game. I just look back at that game, and you think about all these tough losses for the Bills throughout the years, and it's just impossible for me to say as a fan how the heck the Bills aren't cursed as a franchise.
I hear you, and we feel like it today. It's just another gut punch to Buffalo sports. Except in the AFL days before the NFL merger, the last couple of AFL championships, and the lacrosse team in town, which is great. So I want to give them respect. Except for them, we've never really had it. We've never had a world championship here in football, or even had an NBA team for a hot minute, and hockey, the Stanley Cup. Never, but that we've gotten close, and no goal happened, and they didn't have a Stanley Cup, and wide right in the Super Bowl, and 4 straight losses, and then you see how some of these seasons have ended here. So I totally understand anybody thinking that, especially here in Buffalo today.
We know how demoralizing 13 seconds was, but with this game being at home, it looking like they were on the 8-minute drive and they were going to put the ball in the end zone, and then it ends up having a wide right kick. Was this one actually tougher than 13 seconds when you were walking off the field yesterday?
I don't know. It's maybe every fan will have a different answer. For me, it wasn't. I think 13 seconds was a little worse. This was more of they had a shot. You drove down there. It was anticlimactic. And also, let's remember, if they make it, that Patrick Mahomes has like a minute and a half. And I don't know if there was a lot of confidence that they would stop, the Chiefs. I think you think back a couple of years ago when there's 13 seconds left. I mean, I was literally making plans on who I was interviewing after the game on the field. That's what I was doing. I was asking Tracy Wolfson, who are you getting? Because TV gets their person, then who do I get for radio? And that's what we were doing. And that just happened so quickly and should never have happened. This was more of a, wow, I mean, the season's ending. Like after all that, the season's over. It's ending. And then it was tough to deal with, and it's tough to take today, obviously.
Sal Capaccio here with us, longtime Bills sideline reporter. How do you look back at Josh Allen's performance yesterday?
Well, he was a beast. I mean, Josh, he plays his best in the playoffs, and he's had an MVP type season. He's going to probably finish second in the MVP voting, Lamar Jackson, maybe third. I think Lamar's going to win it. That's why I say that. He's had an amazing season, and he was even stepped up a level here in the playoffs. His playoff numbers are incredible. Look at him over the last 2 weeks, what he's done against Pittsburgh and against Kansas City. No turnovers at all, no interceptions. He did have the fumble that the Bills wound up actually recovering yesterday. The yardage he's accounted for, both rushing and passing. But that's Josh in the playoffs. It's one of the things that gets me upset about when people talk about, and I get it, like we're in this business act where we know that the quarterback's the guy. And if you don't win, it's, well, the quarterback can't win this, or he can't beat this guy. But I just think that's unfair to Josh Allen, who's played incredible in the playoffs. I ran some numbers today of all quarterbacks all time with at least 20 touchdown passes in the playoffs. Josh Allen has the lowest interception percentage of any of them. That includes Brady, that includes Mahomes, that includes Manning, everybody. I mean, this guy just is incredible in the playoffs, and I thought he carried the team on his back yesterday in crucial moments, obviously, but unfortunately just it didn't happen at the end.
And I think the 2 points of contention that you could have when you criticize Josh yesterday, just in the 2 sequences of the game, was after the idiotic fake punt, and then they survived it with a fumble, and that going out of the back of the end zone. To not get points on the board off of that was tough, but that could be a team issue. But the one that I really take issue with was that 2nd and 9 throw right before 2 plays later, right? You had the missed kick by Bass. Why do you think he did not go to Stefon Diggs? When you were watching it, even in person on TV, I'm like, hit Diggs, hit Diggs, hit Diggs. And then he went for the big home run shot for the touchdown.
Because Khalil Shakir was open in the end zone for a touchdown. He got hit as he was throwing it. Would have been a touchdown. He got to score. I mean, he was there. That's the throw. And if you watch actually the all 22, Stefon Diggs might not even got the first down. It actually looks a little different when it's actually widened out that there were 2 guys bearing down on him. But that's why Josh Allen's Josh Allen. I mean, he had him open. He makes that throw usually 9 out of 10 times. The one time he didn't, he had Chris Jones coming in on Deion Dawkins sitting on his lap, basically. He even said, I couldn't get into the throw a little bit. If you look at the actual replay, you see that Josh just couldn't lay into it, which is why he short-armed it. But if he does, it's a touchdown. And now the Chiefs have to go down and score a touchdown. And now it's so funny to me when people say, well, you should have just got the first down, bleed the clock. There's no guarantee you're going to score. You got to score. You got to get a touchdown. And he went for a shot. Khalil Shakir was open. I find no issue with it.
Talking to Sal Capaccio right now. All right, let's get into Steph Diggs. You look at the stats this year, 107 catches, 1,183 yards, 8 touchdowns. You're like, okay, he had a good season. But then when you know that he hasn't had a 100-yard game since week 6, hasn't had a touchdown since week 12, what do you look back on with Stefon Diggs to maybe get a better understanding on why he's not had the usual typical Stefon Diggs season that we've been accustomed to?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're asking the same thing. We've been asking the same thing here for several weeks. And I think there's probably a mixture of a lot of things going on. And that is that, teams know he's their number one guy. So a lot of times they're going to shade to him, and they don't always double cover him, but I think they're going to focus a little bit on him. But I also think, excuse me, that Stefon has had issues separating. He really hasn't been able to, get open one-on-one. They've manufactured ways to get him the ball in the backfield, out of the backfield, in the slot. Now, I would say though, Zach, if you look at, I think every single game for the last 5, maybe 6, every one of them, Josh misses Stefon, or Stefon doesn't come up with a pass on a long, deep ball, including yesterday. I mean, he should have caught that ball.
Absolutely.
You talk about when they get the ball back with 8 minutes left. I mean, Josh Allen put a dime out there. Stefon Diggs should have caught it. That's nothing on Josh Allen at all. That's something that, Stefon Diggs needs to come up with the ball. But there's been one of those every game for like the last 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Pittsburgh, he was wide open, and Josh just basically got it, had it tipped. Before that, he was wide open. He overthrew him. And I think against Miami it was. So yeah, I don't know. And his father time catching up a little bit. He was his age 30 season. He'll be 31. The separation. And I also think that, the Bills just don't have a lot of weapons to get a lot of separation. So teams have kind of just packed it in a little bit and said, all right, there's not as much room to operate out there, because I think all in all, the Bills are having trouble separating at those spots.
I know it started off a weird way this year, and then towards the end of the season, they just weren't on the same page. Do you think he's definitely back next year in Buffalo?
I would never say definitely. I would tell you this, 2 things. One, that's different from last year. Last year, there was a lot made of what happened against Cincinnati and the demonstrative actions, if you will, on the sidelines, and how he was interacting with Josh, and then he stormed out, didn't, talk to reporters. Now, he didn't talk to reporters. It's kind of normal for Stefon. He doesn't anyway when after a lot of games. But I was one of the last reporters in the locker room last night. He was still there. There was like 5 guys. He stayed around. He was in there, and he didn't talk to us, but he was there. So it didn't end that way. But the other thing is, Zach, I mean, his contract is very prohibitive. They can't release him or trade him unless he and management come to some resolution on reworking the contract. There's no way Brandon Beane is going to cripple his team any more than it already is with the salary cap. And there's no way they can do that by trading or getting rid of Stefon Diggs. That would happen. And they would take on way too big of a salary cap hit unless they rework the contract.
Talking to Sal Capaccio right now, I know there's a difference in what will happen and what should happen. I do believe, though, that next year Sean McDermott will be this team's coach. Would you be surprised if they moved on from Sean in the next few days?
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I understand. We take calls all the time about, I'm just listening to him today, and I'm gonna get him more tomorrow and everything. That there's a segment of fans who believe they should, who believe they've reached their ceiling. He did a good job. He changed the culture, but it's time for a new voice and a new direction with a team that hasn't gone over the hump, too conservative, defensive, whatever you want to say. I'll tell you that I just don't think this ownership would do that. Now, anything is possible. Of course, I've been in this league long enough to know, and covering the league long enough. But Terry and Kim Pagula, I don't think they have an appetite to change Sean McDermott, because they have what every owner pretty much dreams of, which is synergy between their GM, their head coach, their front office, and a contender that goes along with that. And I just don't think that they want to upset that, because they have been very successful together, even though they haven't, climbed over the Kansas City mountain and gotten to where they want to be. Anything is possible. There's no doubt about it. But short of Sean McDermott saying that for some reason he didn't want to be the head coach, I would personally find it hard to believe that they would move on. He did just get a contract extension right before the season. Now, of course, you can still move on from someone, but I think that was just the owner showing, hey, I have faith in this guy, and I know things haven't been perfect, but, we're going to stick with it here.
4 postseasons ago, this team was in the AFC title game. Since then, they've been stuck the last 3 years in the divisional round. When you kind of take a step back in the immediate aftermath of yesterday, what needs to change with this team so they could find a way to finally break through while this window is still somewhat open?
Maybe someone needs to knock out the Chiefs before they get to the Bills. That's what needs to change, to be honest with you. I don't know. It's a good question. We were at Locker Cleanout Day today. We asked the players the same thing, and the other answer is you got to make more plays than the other team. You got to make the play that's there, and if you don't, I do think, though, you have to take a hard look at the weapons. And then we talked about Stefon Diggs, Gabe Davis, a free agent. They don't have separators right now. They did a good job bringing in Dalton Kincaid. He's going to be a really fantastic player. James Cook does a nice job out of the backfield. They can get a play here or play there, but they didn't have much of a downfield passing game. And you have a quarterback here who we saw, we know what he can do throwing the football. And I think that is something that needs to change. I think they need to bring in or find a way to have people and weapons who can separate, give Josh Allen the opportunity to throw the ball downfield, not lean on him to run as much, even though he's great at it. And we love seeing that. It helps the team, obviously. But, if he can put the ball on his arm and find guys downfield more like they did in that AFC Championship year, you think about the weapons they had. And they had Stefon Diggs, but they also had John Brown and Cole Beasley and Emmanuel Sanders. And it was just really tough to stop the weapons catching the ball on that offense.